Welcome to Unleash the Awesome with Dave Gambrill. All of us have unique skills, talents, and abilities that aren't being used to their full potential. Our mission is to share the people, tools, apps, and other resources that will help you unleash your awesome on the world.
Yo, what's up? It's Dave. Welcome to another episode of Unleash the Awesome. Today, let's talk about the concepts are few, but the methods are many. And before I get into this conversation, little disclaimer, I'm going to talk about some examples and some things from both medical and financial arenas. I am not a doctor. I do not play one on the internet or my podcast, and I'm not your own financial advisor. So make sure that you take this information for information and educational purposes only and consult with your specific medical and financial professionals before taking action on anything I may talk about as an example in this podcast. So the concepts are few, but the methods are many. And I've been thinking a lot about this. I'm sure you've heard that saying before. But I think it's one of the reasons why people get so jammed up in some of the things they're trying to achieve in their life, because there are literally millions of permutations of ways to get to results in certain situations. But the further people get away from the actual concept of what they're trying to achieve or the strategy of what they're trying to achieve, the harder it is, and the more they just kind of cycle downward in doing stuff that just does not move the needle in what it is they're trying to do. So let me give you some examples. The concepts are few, but the methods are many as it relates to being healthy and fit, right? We know that if you want to lose weight and or not gain weight, the basic idea is you have to burn more calories or expend more calories than you consume. That's it. I get it. All you science and fitness nerds, I get it. And I mean that lovingly. We know now that a calorie is not a calorie and science is evolving, but the basic idea, the basic concept is, in order for you to either lose weight or not gain weight, you have to burn more calories than you consume on a consistent basis. That's it. That's a concept. But as you start thinking about it, right, people are like, well, there's lots of ways to do that. You could burn calories at rest, and there's ways to get your metabolism up so that basically your everyday metabolism is a little bit higher, and maybe you're not doing a lot of active exercise, but if you could get your active metabolism up, you can burn more calories that way. Obviously, we know that if you exercise, that burns more calories. And then when you start getting into exercising, what exactly is it are you going to do? Are you going to do high intensity interval training, HIIT training? Are you going to do strength training? Are you going to do cardio training zone 2, like where you try to stay at like 70, 80% of your max heart rate? Like there's so many things you could do. You could walk, you could hike, you could cycle, you could swim, you could do a million things, right? And so those are all of the different methods. Those are all the different ways that you could get at really just one side of that equation, right? Burning more calories. How do you burn more calories? On the other side of that, how do you consume fewer calories, right? And so there's lots of ways to do that. You can literally just restrict your calorie intake and look at it, measure it, and say, okay, I need to do 500 fewer calories per day or whatever it is your target is. And you could log it and measure it. There are some diets that will help you do that through helping with your insulin and your insulin resistance if you have it, and some other things. So you'll hear about low carb diets and the keto diet and things like that actually help you burn your fat more efficiently and effectively, right? But ultimately, you could not consume more calories and burn fewer calories and still lose weight, right? It just doesn't work that way. So what happens on these low carb or keto diets is it reduces your appetite, and with the good fats and stuff that you're eating, that helps reduce your appetite, and then you burn your own fat through something called ketosis, more efficiently and effectively, and so you tend to lose weight. But if you look at it, the reason why you're losing the weight is that, or not gaining weight, is that your calories have come down significantly. Maybe not at the beginning. Maybe not if you're, putting butter in your coffee and eating a pound of bacon for breakfast every day. Maybe not in the beginning. But what tends to happen is you tend to get full easier. So your body is sending messages, your brain is sending messages to your body saying, okay, I don't need to eat as much. And then if you increase your exercise, your burning of calories a little bit, just even by walking, getting 10,000 steps a day, whatever, what tends to happen is now you have shifted that, the numbers for you so that you are actually burning more calories than you're consuming. But again, there's so many ways you can do it. And there's so many ways within those different diets and things that you could do it. So if you're like carb restricted or straight, actual keto, there's lots of ways you could do it. You could do it with protein shakes. You could do it with, like I said, eating bacon and cheese and things like that. There's all kinds of ways to achieve it. So again, the methods are many, and I'm not saying that any of this is necessarily healthy for you. Again, check with your own medical professionals. But, there's other diets. There's the Ornish diet, and there's the Mediterranean diet, and there's all kinds of diets and things that you could follow. They could help you reduce your calories, and then all kinds of exercises you could do to burn more calories, right? So in fitness, there's one example of the concepts are few, basically one, really. And even if you look at some of the medical or surgical or pharmaceutical interventions that you could do, if you were to get like a lap band for your stomach, what that's doing is it's reducing the amount of calories that you can eat. You just feel nauseous and full, and you just can't like physically eat anymore. And so you don't. And so your calories are restricted. There are some pharmaceutical interventions like GLP-1 analogs, incretin mimetics, things like that essentially do the same thing. They delay gastric emptying. So they delay the emptying of food from your stomach. So the food sits in there a little longer. You feel fuller longer. It also has some action on the hormones that message around that kind of stuff to your body. So you as you're eating, you just feel full faster. And then you tend to feel full longer. And what does that do? That reduces overall calorie intake. So again, all these different methods, but the concepts are few. And in this case, really one: burn more calories than you consume. If you think about it from a financial perspective, right? The main concept is, if you want to be rich, if you want to be financially free, then what you have to figure out how to do is earn more money than you spend. Right? That's it. Period. End of sentence. You have to have more income than expenses. That's it. And so the methods are many. And it really depends on where you are in your journey and what's happening. So you'll see a lot of people fighting in the space about, there's a guy, David Bach, who has a great book called The Automatic Millionaire. I highly recommend you read it, no matter where you are in your journey, to understand the principles behind it. But I specifically gave a copy of this to all my children one time as one of their Christmas gifts. Yes, we gave them more exciting things that they enjoyed, but there's always some educational component somewhere in there. So this one year, they all got a copy of The Automatic Millionaire. And the basic premise in there is David Bach talks about this idea of the latte factor, where he says, essentially, and paraphrasing this example, if you are spending, $5 at Starbucks every day, 30 days a month, then that's $150 that you're spending on stuff, right? So I just mentioned, you got to cut on your expenses and increase your income. So what if you just gave up your $5 latte and you made coffee at home or something? And so let's just, for simple math, say that gets you an additional, and that's not income because you already had it, but it's an additional $150 of money or an asset that you could use to then invest in something, right? So you'll hear a lot of people say, I don't have money to invest. I don't have money to get this tool I need to build my business online, whatever. And I'll sometimes say, well, look at your Netflix and your Disney Plus subscriptions and your lattes and a whole bunch of other things that maybe you don't need, or that you could sacrifice in the short term to have some money, to have some capital to invest in something that will actually help you make money, right? So you'll hear about other books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I'll put all these things in the show notes so you can get access to them if you want to go read them. But, the idea of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he says basically that you can use other people's money, OPM, to essentially go into debt, right? That he'll say like there's good debt and bad debt, and that you can use other people's money and leverage that to make investments so that you can make more money and then pay off those loans and things like that. But if you go read Dave Ramsey's books, he's like, all debt is bad, freeze your credit cards, cut them up, like don't have any debt, blah, 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 right? And again, like none of these dudes are wrong. Well, let's add a female voice to it, Susie Orman, same basic idea. She's kind of in the middle of all that. She'll say, hey, reduce your expenses, don't have credit card debt, blah, blah, blah. But she'll say, go buy a house and all these other things, which Dave Ramsey, initially might say, do some other things first before you do that, before you acquire some of these assets, right? But ultimately, they're all saying the same thing. The concept is all the same. The concept is make more money than you spend, period. But they all approach it from different ways. And so where people tend to get jammed up is they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know who to follow. Oh, what's going on? Like, my advice to you would be go back to the concept and look at it, get as close to the concept as possible, making more money than I'm spending. And then take a real good look at your situation and say, okay, where am I now? What am I doing? If you're in a situation like I was when I just got out into the working world, I didn't have a lot of money saved up. I didn't have a lot of, quote, extra money laying around. And so when I came across David Bach's material, I was like, you know what? This makes sense. Why don't I reduce my spending on some just entertainment stuff or some frivolous stuff? So that's one side of the equation. Let me reduce my spending, reduce my expenses. But then in order for this to work, you have to work the other side of the equation. Let me invest more money. And for me, this made sense. Again, I'm not your financial advisor, but for me, it made sense to invest more money at the time in the company I was working for, in their retirement plan, in their 401k, because I put it in index funds, and I knew that if I just put it in there over time, it will get me on average like 7%. And I understand the idea and the concept behind compounding over time, right? And David Bach's Automatic Millionaire gets into that a lot. And that's one of the things I was trying to express to my children, saying to them, look, you're still young and you're starting to make money. You could put it away in something like a Roth, right? You could have your own Roth IRA. You could, just put some money in savings if you want, which is not going to get you a lot of money, but it would reduce your spending. But I would recommend getting a Roth because of the tax implications and things like that. And so I was trying to explain that to them. Being kids, teenagers at the time, some of them were like, yeah, okay, Dad, whatever. But the principle stuck. And so then when they started making money, when they started getting like a real job and they got out of college or whatever, they're like, oh yeah, Dad, I signed up for the 401k and I put in enough for matching and blah, blah, blah. So that they did the idea that David Bach talks about in his book of pay yourself first. So before he's getting they're getting any of their net money deposited for direct deposit, they already have money going into investments that are going to make money for them over the long term, right? So essentially, they have reduced their expenses and they have increased their investments, right? So their income, they are doing that. And so the other concept here, besides lowering your expenses and increasing your income, is then how do you invest in assets that work for you 24/7? So, right, so this is another concept. All right, I just showed you how you could save a little money so that you could actually have it to do something, but then what do you do with it? And then there's lots of ways you can invest it in, quote, passive income ideas or passive things. So again, not your financial advisor, but you could do real estate. You could do, rental properties so that you're getting that money back to you. And this is where Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, gets into the idea of, could you use other people's money? Could you figure out a way to get some loans or whatever to buy a property? And in some cases, they'll mention, like, if you're going to buy your first house as a new homeowner, maybe get a duplex, and then you live in one side and you rent out the other side. So you have rental income coming in and you could pay off your own mortgage through that strategy. It's a really fascinating strategy. It also has some tax things that come with it, which is cool. So that's one thing you could do. You could invest in stocks. That's probably the easiest thing for people to do, to invest in low fee index funds, like S&P 500, market basket type things. Lots of really smart people recommend that in the financial space. Again, do your own homework, talk to your own financial advisor, but a lot of people will recommend that you invest your money in an index fund, low fee, low cost index fund, and just let it ride over time, right? So you could do that. You could open a business. You could do some of the things that I help people do, which is monetize your message online through courses and conferences and books and memberships and things like that. You could do that, right? But all of these things to get started take a little bit of money. So you got to go back to the first concept. I got to have a little money, right? A little, quote, extra money. And then I got to figure out how to invest it, right? So that's the second concept. But even inside that, The concepts are few, but the methods are many. And then when you get to, this will be the last example, the idea of monetizing your message online, which is what I help lots of people with. If you're not part of my digital marketing mentorship Facebook group, you should probably come check it out. I'll put that in the show notes for you so you can access it. I do have a partner Telegram channel so that if you're not into Facebook, you could check that out. But what I talk about in there is how to set up courses, create courses online or memberships or things like that so that you could do the work once, put it online, and basically be selling that stuff, be selling access to those courses 24/7, 365, so that you do the work once, you put it out there, and it's not as easy as this example seems, right? It takes work. It's not easy, but it is simple if you follow the instructions. You put those stuff out there, and then you make money essentially 24/7, which is great because while I'm sleeping here in the United States, there are people in New Zealand and Australia that are buying my products online. They're buying my courses. They're investing in my memberships. They're buying whatever it is I put out there, right? So that's another way for me. That's another method for me to be creating more income. And I like that because it's mostly passive, right? You do the work once and then it's out there just doing its thing. Right? People are just buying it. And you can set up automated onboarding sequences and all kinds of stuff like that. So, but if you boil that down to the concept that I just talked about, the basic idea of like, how can you create some passive income for you? That's a pretty good way to do it. But again, rental properties, investing in equities, like there's so many ways to do it. You know, people will talk about crypto. I'm not going to get into that today, but there are ways to do that too, where you can earn pretty high interest on some of your holdings that are relatively stable in that space, earning, 7-9%, just having it sit there. That has nothing to do with the capital gain or loss. And in most of these things, they're stable coins. And so there's really no change in the price, right? It's pegged to the dollar. But I know people that are earning 7-8% on those things right now, which is pretty good. So again, lots of methods. So my encouragement to you in this episode is, as you think about your goals and the things that you're trying to do, it's really easy to get mired in the methods. It's really easy to get lost in the forest. It's really easy to just be like, whoa, like if I talked about starting a business, right? A lot of people say to me, I need a business card. I need a logo. And I'm like, no, you don't need any of that stuff, right? There's some other thing. Maybe you'll get that later, right? There's people like, I need to establish an LLC. And I'm like, well, look, I'm not a tax or legal advisor, but like there's other things you could do to actually be making money first, to test your proof of concept and, get a proof of concept. And then maybe as you start scaling a little bit and you see that thing's going to stick and stay, then you protect it. It'd be really silly to put all this effort and energy into creating the branding and all this other stuff up front when you don't even know if your idea is going to work, right? So what I do is I encourage people to get back and look at what is the concept that you're executing on here? What is it that you're trying to do? And so my recommendation to you would be, as you think about this stuff and maybe you're not having the success you want, look back at what it is you're trying to do. Like go back to that core concept, that core belief, that core strategy and say, okay, how far have I strayed from this basic idea of what we're trying to do here? And a lot of times that's the problem. You just got so far away. And so you need to move back and say, okay, how can I, using our fitness example, like, okay, I've been exercising like crazy, but I'm not losing any weight. What the heck is going on here? We'll go back and look at the concept. Oh, I'm eating a pizza for every meal, an entire pizza, and I'm riding the bike for 20 minutes a day. Okay, that math probably doesn't work, right? So that becomes the problem. People get really good on one side. You'll often hear in the fitness space, people will say, you can't outwork your habits in the kitchen, right? You can't out-exercise your habits in the kitchen. So if you're trying to get six-pack abs or do all these things, like, yeah, that one side of the equation is working out, doing your core exercises, doing whatever the current core things are. I guess sit-ups are no good anymore, but there's lots of other things you could be doing, crunches and other things to work on all of the muscles in your stomach. You can do all that stuff, your obliques and all that stuff. But again, if you're doing pizza and beer every other meal, probably not going to work because the other side of the equation doesn't add up. It's not working. So look at that. Wherever you are, figure out where you are, and then look back at the original concept of what it is you're trying to operate from and see how far you strayed and see if you're accurately representing both sides of those equations, right? In all of these cases, I gave you, okay, you need to do this, and then you need to do this to be successful, right? In the fitness case, calories in, calories out, basically. In the financial space, it's money in, money out, right? So look back at those things and see if you can simplify or get closer to the original concept, the original idea, so that you get that right. You get the math on that right. You get that figured out. And a lot of times it's just simple things. It's not these crazy things. That's the other reason why people get blown out. They're like, I'm going to do these crazy things. No, for exercise and calories in and calories out, a lot of times it's just really paying attention to what it is you're eating. Sometimes it's as simple as just writing it down, and that will change your habits around eating. And then walking every day, getting 10,000 steps in every day. Something like that could make a huge difference in somebody's fitness. Those are two very simple things. Simply being conscious of what you're eating and writing it down, logging it. Because you'll make changes based on that. When you see that you're writing down like, oh, I ate a whole pizza again. I drank a case of beer over this last week again, right? Oh, wow, those 6 glasses of wine over the last couple of days, like, okay, those added up a little bit. Oh, and then I ate cake, and then I did other things. And then you look at it and you're like, whoa. And then it's easier for you to do your math on that, to go, well, okay, let's eliminate this or let's reduce this, right? So sometimes simple things like that, literally just writing things down on what you're eating and then increasing your steps. And pretty much all of us today, whether or not you have an Apple Watch or other kind of thing, like a Fitbit, like most of the smartphones or whatever will measure steps. I know the Apple phones do it. I assume the Android phones do it. They'll measure your steps each day if you carry your phone around with you. So like that could be a really simple thing. So instead of worrying about like all of these other things that aren't really close to the original concept, all these other methods, right, that are actually madness, get back to the original thing. And instead of trying to reverse engineer some of the stuff you see, right? People see things like Chris Hemsworth, right, the famous actor. He's gotten like super fit for a ton of his movies that he's done, like super fit. And people are like, I want to look like him, so I want to do what he did. Okay, and if you look at what he did on the basic thing, it makes sense. He burned a hell of a lot more calories than he consumed to get that cut. But he also had to, at some point, consume a lot more calories to put on the muscle that he did, right? So that equation changed a little bit based on what he was trying to do. But then he's $1 million plus actor. And so he has full-time chefs and nutritionists and fitness trainers and people that live with him to make sure that he's not, eating stuff he shouldn't be eating. And then he did these insane workouts because the only thing he had to do all day was work out. He didn't have any other responsibilities like family and whatever. So this example came up the other day when somebody's like, yeah, I want to look like him, so I'm going to do his workout. And I'm like, dude, that's great. I'm glad you're inspired by that. I'm glad that's where you want to go. Let's break that down for a second and think about it. How many hours do you have in your day to commit to that? And he's like, well, I'm like, and are you going to eat like that? Well, I'm like, okay, so let's figure out, like, you could get there. No doubt you could definitely get there. But that method for you is probably not going to be the one that is going to get you the results you're looking for. 75 Hard. Andy Frisella has this thing out, 75 Hard. It's like 75 days of pretty basic stuff, right? I'm not going to get all of them. I tend to miss them, but there's like 5 or 6 things he just wants you to do every day. Drink a gallon of water, exercise twice for, I think, 45 minutes each time. One has to be outside. The other doesn't matter. And read a book, like a personal growth nonfiction book or something for so many pages, whatever. And then take a picture of your progress each day. Like take a picture at the beginning, take a picture every day, and like check in on social media or something. Those are the basic ideas of a 75 Hard program. When you boil that down, look at it. Okay. Calories. Oh, the other one was a diet. I forgot that one. All right. You stick to some diet. He doesn't even say. He's like, pick a diet and stick to it. So whatever is going to work for you. So the reason why this is so successful, 75 Hard, has helped so many people, is because it focuses on the things that you need. Proper hydration, which I didn't mention some of this fitness stuff, but it's hard for fat to leave your body if it doesn't have a way to leave. So if you're properly hydrated, then it can leave your body through your sweat and through your urine, and there's other ways, right? But basically, when you look at that, it's calories in, right? Reduced calories in and more calories out, working out twice a day, 45 minutes. And then he's got the mindset piece around reading the book. So the reason why, and it's extrapolated over time. It's not overnight. It's not 10 days. It's not 2 weeks. It's 75 days. He's got the accountability and stuff built in, right? So this has been my 24-minute long-winded way to tell you, whatever it is you're trying to do, whatever you're trying to execute on, wherever you're trying to have some improved outcomes, some increased success in your life, look at how far you have strayed from the original concept, the original idea, the original strategy of whatever that is, and then say, oh, okay, look, I got pretty far away. Let's get back closer to this thing and look at it and analyze it. And let's make some very small but consistent changes. And I think, no, I'm not going to say I think, I know when you do that, it will help you unleash your awesome on the world. See ya.
Thanks for listening to Unleash the Awesome. Please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please share us on your favorite social media platforms using #UnleashAwesome.